Is this a bold move or a strategic gamble? How are you looking at these developments? I'll of course talk to you about what countries do you think are going to be most affected. What does this mean for Europe? Were they even prepared? Were they anticipating something like this? But first and foremost, on the Libra scales, where do you put this move? Was it a bold move or a strategic gamble?
Well, I would like to mention that the Europeans, the European Union specifically, had been planning for this. And if you look at the figures, 152 billion cubic meters of gas used to come from Russia to Europe. That has come down to about 23 billion cubic meters in 2024. So and half of it only was coming in through Ukraine. The other half through three other pipelines that the Russians have to Europe. So the European Union was prepared for it. It was gearing up to do this. And I think the Ukrainians got a signal from the European Union that they must, now act to stop the Russians getting a lot of money, $5 billion. Some reports say that they were getting about $6.5 billion worth by selling gas. Now, that was helping the war effort to a certain extent. So the Ukrainians, I think, got the signal, to my mind, from the Europeans that they were well prepared. They have now they have now developed alternative sources, Qatar, US, and Norway from the North Sea. So they are now well prepared, and their dependence is only to the extent of 8%, which will also come down in the near future.
Is it safe to say that, of course, Moldova continues to grapple under its effects? Slovakia will continue to look towards Russia. You've got some of these countries. Austria is tied up with Germany, is what I read up in the afternoon as well. But is it safe to say that the dependency and this hegemony of Russia has come to an end?
I wouldn't say that, because out of $23 billion that the billion cubic meters that the Russians have sent in 2024, about half of it was through Ukraine. The other half, about 12 billion cubic meters, was through other pipelines, including the Turk Stream, which goes under the Black Sea to Turkey, and Blue Stream also. So these two pipelines are still functioning. The ones which have not been functional since 2022 were Nord Stream 1. There were two pipelines there which were blown up under mysterious circumstances. The less said about it, the better. And Nord Stream 2, one of the pipelines was blown up. The other one has not been functional. And there is another one. The last one is called Yamal Europe. That used to cross through Belarus. That has also not been functional since the war started in 2022. So the sum and substance of this is that Turkey still continues to use Russian gas, and it will continue to use it perhaps in for the foreseeable future. But other countries, as you have mentioned, Moldova is the worst hit. Slovakia was making money by allowing gas to come from Russia and going to, Italy and Austria and other countries. Now that will stop, but Slovakia will not get hit very much.
Sir, I'll ask you another question, sir. Because you see, Ambassador, we also need to look at how this is going to affect Ukraine now. And I've got a reaction coming in from the Slovak Prime Minister, Robert Fico. He's issued a stark warning about the drastic impact the halt of Russian gas transit through Ukraine will have on European Union countries. Of course, talking about his own nation, he says, I'm going to exact revenge with the electricity that I've been giving to Ukraine. Listen in to what Robert Fico had to say.
Nobody, I repeat, nobody is pushing Slovakia away from the living space that is the European community. But we must see that selfish national interests of the big ones and meaningless geopolitical goals are beginning to dominate this community. And on the other hand, ignoring the needs of smaller ones. In world politics, it absolutely applies that it does not matter whether elephants love or fight. the grass always suffers. I do not want Slovakia to be such grass, as we see these days when the transit of gas through Ukraine is stopped, which will have drastic impacts on all of us in the European Union, but not on the Russian Federation.
So, Ambassador, you heard the man over there. He says when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. Who's going to talk about the smaller European nations? I mean, amidst all of this, we need to focus on Ukraine as well. You've helped us understand that the European Union was prepared for it. This is not going to mean the end of hegemony for Russia. But what about Ukraine and all these smaller nations in play?
Well, it is going to affect perhaps Serbia and Hungary to a certain extent, but they are still going to get the gas from Turk Stream, which, if the Turkey government allows it to function, will continue unabated. So Serbia and Hungary, these two countries will not suffer. Moldova, of course, will suffer. And there is an enclave called Transnistria, which is sandwiched between Moldova and Ukraine, which has a population of between 3 lakhs to 4.5 lakhs. Now, that will suffer because Moldova was compelled to switch off the gas supplies as of yesterday. So, there are small pockets which will suffer, which do not have an alternative source of gas. But barring these few pockets, I don't think by and large Western Europe or Eastern Europe, for that matter, will suffer.
We're going to leave it there, Ambassador. Many thanks for joining with us and helping us really understand who's at fault here, who's at play here. You know what, actually, Ambassador, before I let you go, who's the biggest gainer out of all of this? Could you put a finger on that for us?
Well, there is some speculation that gas prices in Europe will increase as a consequence of
Yes, absolutely. We've got some of those visuals as well. Buying bread is a little bit more treacherous when you're looking at Poland and Polish bakeries. Austria, like I mentioned, has already tied up these deals as well. But all in all, it's the price rise that's going to hurt and burn the pockets of the common man.
Yes. And perhaps the Qatar government and the US will gain, and the Norwegians will gain by supplying more gas to Europe.